Hashem gives the Jewish people their very first mitzvah. The very first mitzvah that they're commanded. Now, this is not the first mitzvah that appears in the Torah. Everyone knows the first mitzvah that appears in the Torah is the mitzvah of Puruvu, to be fruitful and multiply, to have children and fill up the world with our children. But that was not the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people as a nation. The first mitzvah that was given to the Jewish people as a nation finds itself in this week's Torah portion, and I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to have you read it. This is in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Take a look at your screen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe v'laharon beretz Mitzrayim lemor. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt. What does he say? Next verse. HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim. This month shall be for you the head of the months. We're talking about the month of Nisan. Rishon hu lachem l'chodshei hashana. And to you it will be the first of the months of the year. In essence, what God is doing is giving the Jewish people the mitzvah, the commandment of sanctifying the new moon, of establishing the new month. And this was a great mitzvah. Now, we all know that Rashi tells us that how did Hashem give this mitzvah to Moshe? He took him outside and he said, look up, look at the moon. When you see the moon at this state, this size, this shape, you know that the moon is in its state of renewal. And he told him, when you see it like this, now you know it's Rosh Chodesh. So normally at the beginning of the month, it always looks like a very thin sliver, like a resh, alluding to Rosh Chodesh, the new month. And this is exactly how Moshe Rabbeinu was notified and commanded to start observing this great mitzvah and passing it on to the Jewish people. Another very, very famous, I think maybe one of the most famous Rashis in our Torah is the very first Rashi of our Torah. In the beginning of the book of Genesis, verse 1, chapter 1, Rashi's opening statement on his commentary on the Torah says that really the first mitzvah was supposed to be, the Torah should have started in the middle of the book of Exodus, right here, chapter 12, verse 1, because that's the very first mitzvah that Hashem gives the Jewish people. So why did he give us an extra book and a half beforehand? He did so in order that we will know, and not only will we, but every single nation in the world will know, that Hashem is the true creator of the entire universe and the world and everything inside it. And as Rashi writes, it is up to Hashem to decide what belongs to who. Again, it's his that he made, and it's his to give. So the land of Israel, that which the Jewish people will occupy coming up very soon, belongs to God because God created it. And yes, there was a period of time where there were 7 nations that were living there. It was up to, and it's up to Hashem to take it back from them and give it to the Jewish people. So Hashem preferred to start the Torah not from the beginning of the nation of Israel, rather from the beginning of creation of time, and then bring us up to speed up to this point. Very good. So now, why does the Torah, at this point, Reb Leib wants to know, speak about this seemingly random verse, this verse of sanctifying the new month? We have to go back into the context of this week's Torah portion, and hopefully over Shabbos you'll open up a Chumash and you'll pay attention that the end of the 11th chapter is really literally finishing off the 10 plagues, and then right at the beginning of the 12th chapter, right after these 2 verses, Hashem tells the Jewish people to prepare their Paschal lamb, and there's going to be this Korban Pesach that's going to take place, this sacrifice. But right before all that, 2 verses are just thrown in, that Hashem tells Moses and Aaron, and the next verse, that to sanctify the new month. Reb Leib wants to know, why is this wedged in right over here? Why is this so important to be said right now? There's so many details and laws and things that are happening really important right now for the Jewish people, and they're preparing of their exodus, and they're preparing to sacrifice their Paschal lamb. Oh, Hashem says, right now I need to tell them this mitzvah. Reb Leib says, well, what's going on? Why right now? So he gives a simple answer. Simple answer is basically that if the Jewish people are obligated, as the Torah says, on the 10th of the month of Nisan to gather their lamb in order to slaughter it 4 days later on the 14th. So it has to be on the 10th. And the 14th, well, you got to know when the first is. So that's why Hashem is telling them at that point. It's just, as a matter of fact, you need to know the dates. If all these things depend on dates, which they did, well, you got to know when day 1 is in order so you know when day 10 and then 14 are. Fine. But, and that's, Reb Leib quotes that in the name of the Kli Yakar, one of the commentators on the Torah. But Reb Leib wants to give 2 other reasons. He writes, I believe, this is literally how he writes it. He goes, I believe there are 2 other great reasons why this mitzvah is number 1, the first mitzvah Hashem decided to give the Jewish people right before they exit slavery. And specifically right at this point, because when they're sacrificing the Pesach sacrifice and then they're about to leave, they're free already. So Reb Leib wants to say right now is deliberate because there's 2 great reasons why this had to happen. This mitzvah had to be given to the Jewish people before they were freed from slavery. So he gives us a background concept, which he develops a little bit. And then based on that development of that concept, he gives the 2 reasons. He says that while Hashem was setting the Jewish people free, God was transferring to the Jewish court, to Bet Din, to the sages, a specific and a certain power and responsibility to, from now on, decide when the holidays start and stop. And in other words, Reb Leib says the power over the moon. Because let's remind ourselves, until then, until the time of Exodus, it was completely God who was controlling the calendar and the moon. And the truth be told, that the Jewish people didn't even know too much about it. I mean, there was a calendar, but it wasn't the set specific one the way we have it now. And from the Exodus and on, Hashem decided that he's going to give the power of that deciding of the calendar and the moon to the Jewish people to establish, based on specific rules that Hashem explained to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu passed it on to the sages, how the new moon should start off and the new month should start off. And should it be a 29-day month, a 30-day month? Should there be 13 months in a year or 12 months in a year? Right? This year we have 12 months. We have 2 Adars. Sorry, this year we have 13 months. We have 2 Adars. So it was given to Bet Din, given to mankind, to humanity, to decide on which day Rosh Chodesh actually is, and that it actually becomes a reality. How do we see that it becomes a reality? Well, Bet Din has more power than just determining a date, because we know that the date really has a true impact on the world. For example, if the Bet Din decides that on the 29th of the month is when the last day of Adar is, and then already the 30th is day 1 of the following month of Nisan, well, then that means Passover starting a day earlier and ending a day earlier. And that means all the mitzvahs, all the obligations that are supposed to be fulfilled or observed on a certain day are happening because of the way Bet Din is deciding to elect it and to choose that it should be. And the same happens for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Can you imagine? On Yom Kippur, on one day, it's the day before Yom Kippur, it's a mitzvah to eat, and on the following day, it's prohibited to eat. Based on when Bet Din is going to decide when Rosh Chodesh is, i.e. Rosh Hashanah, that's going to determine on what day we have to eat and one day we have to fast, and it could be completely a different day if not. So this is a tremendous power that was given to the Jewish people and to the sages, and the truth is, Reb Leib explains that it's more than just a physical control over the moon and the calendar. It's also a spiritual one. As we just explained, it's not only the time and date, but it's really the spiritual effect that that day actually comes or doesn't come with. The Talmud says, and he gives us as an amazing example, the Talmud says that the heavenly court waits for the worldly court, the Bet Din down here on this world, to establish when Rosh Hashanah is, in order for the judgment of the new year to start. You understand that the heavenly courts, the one where Hashem is sitting and all his angels, is on pause, is waiting to be preempted by the human beings, the Jews, the sages, the Bet Din here in this world to decide when Rosh Hashanah is. And that's tremendous. He finishes off this introduction with one more piece. This is from the Nefesh HaChaim. Rav Chaim Volozhin explains how each and every deed a person does have a real impact in the physical and spiritual worlds. And it can be for the positive, for the negative. A person can build with their hands, they can destroy with their hands. There's a real physical consequence that takes place. Spiritually, same way. We have a real impact spiritually based on what we say, based on how we act. If we cheer someone up, or if we chas v'shalom say lashon hara, if we steal, or if we give, there are real physical and spiritual consequences. It explains the Nefesh HaChaim based on how we act and what we do. Reb Leib says that when the Bet Din was given the power to establish the new month, they were given the power to decide when certain deeds are either beneficial or detrimental, based on what day of the month it actually is. Okay, so that's his introduction. Now listen to these two other great reasons why Reb Leib said it was imperative that the Jewish people were given this mitzvah of sanctifying the new month, the new moon, the new month, at this point in time, right before they leave Egypt and they're set free. His first reason he gives is that Hashem did this deliberately. Look how beautiful this is. And we're going to make this super practical. Reb Leib actually makes it very practical. Hashem did this deliberately at this point to strengthen and cheer up the Jewish people. Something beautiful about Reb Leib is I never knew him. I may have met him, when I was in yeshiva in Beit Vagan. Maybe I would have walked into his shul, but I never met him. I never heard him speak. But it's evident from his writing that he was a sensitive man. Mrs. Breitman, you're on. Was your older brother a sensitive man? Just by a thumb. He was. He not sensitive chas v'shalom like weak, but sensitive like he cared. It's evident by the way he explains the stories in our Torah that he truly cared for all. And look at this, not only, where does he learn it from? He learns it from Hashem. Hashem cared for the Jewish people. He explains Hashem gave them this mitzvah, and he's going to explain why. This mitzvah out of all mitzvahs at this point to strengthen and cheer the Jewish people up. Let's think of it. They've been destroyed. They've been crushed as a people, as a nation, from all the torture and slavery for almost 100 years at this point. They were in exile in a foreign land. We know the negative effect a person can have, or that can have on a person when they're mistreated, let alone an entire nation. Such a lack of self-worth and self-confidence needed special attention from God. There was a need for the Jewish people to heal from this trauma that they endured as slaves. So you know what God did? He gifted them with a great responsibility and power that they'd be the ones to control the moon, to control the calendar, to set when it starts and stops. This had to be, Reb Leib says, the first thing that Hashem does for the Jewish people as they're emerging out of slavery. Cheer them up, strengthen them, give them power, give them self-confidence, give them a task. From this great step that Hashem did and gave and gifted the Jewish people with, we see the importance of responsibility and power, and we can learn how we can help others, cheer others up, heal others, and help them to become individuals who strive. Because the greatest thing a parent can do for their child, the greatest thing an employer can do for their employee, is to give them a task, give them a little bit of power, a little bit of responsibility. In business, give them a title. I learned this very early on from someone very, very smart. Titles don't cost anything. If you have the power to give someone a title, give it to them. Let them run with it. Because if they run with it, they will start feeling this sense of responsibility and accomplishment and get things done. Get things done that need to get done. Hashem did the exact same thing for the Jewish people. He saw them and he said, they're deserving, of course they're deserving of this. But this is a very, very, very important task at hand. He gifted it to the Jewish people to endear them with this responsibility and this power and this opportunity in order to cheer them up and heal them and lift them up. So that's the first reason Reb Leib says, specifically now, while they're emerging out of slavery, were they given, of course, a mitzvah, but which mitzvah? This mitzvah. Second reason he gives. He says that the Talmud tells us, and it's funny, Rabbi Israel Meir Safra, Reb Leib's son-in-law, he always reminds me that, and I've seen it now, thank God, throughout the books of Reb Leib, that Reb Leib had this affinity to this story, as we're going to soon see the story of the moon. This story is actually the first Dvar Torah that the rabbi writes about, that Reb Leib writes about, and Rabbi Israel Meir tells me all the time that this is one of the go-to divrei Torah and thoughts that he would always share. And we do see that it pops up very often, as I said, in his books. So the story of the moon is explained in Masechet Chulin, in the Talmud, that we all know Hashem created the world with two great luminaries, the sun and the moon. What did the moon do? He had to open his mouth and complain. Must have been Jewish or something, right? Jews love complaining. Anyways, forget that. And he complained. He came to God. He said, how could there be two great luminaries that are equal, two kings sharing the same crown? Hashem says, wise guy, you're right. So go and diminish yourself. So there'll only be one. What did the moon do? The moon went and diminished itself. Hashem said, you know what? Since you diminished yourself so much, the righteous men and women that are going to be coming afterwards, the tzaddikim in the future, are going to be called after you. The same way that you were maktin yourself, you made yourself katan, so too, and you are now called the ma'ora katan, the small luminary, so too our tzaddikim in the future are going to be called katan, small as well, in a good way, in a beautiful way. Yaakov is referred to in the Torah as Yaakov HaKatan when he was being born. He was the second. And David HaKatan, King David, is also referred to as the small one. He was the youngest of his brothers. And when Shmuel was coming and trying to see who Hashem really wanted the new king to be, David is referred to David HaKatan. So small, seemingly, is a praise and a beautiful thing that is named in merit to the moon. Reb Leib has two questions. His first question is, why is Hashem trying to appease the moon by telling him the tzaddikim are going to be called after you? They're going to be called small in the future because you diminish yourself. But the whole diminishing was a punishment. Hashem came and punished him and said, you opened your mouth, you go diminish yourself. So now we're trying to find, that's a beautiful thing. Now we're going to appease him. Yeah, you diminished yourself, and now you're going to have a good thing that comes out of that. Why is there a positive consequence from this punishment? Secondly, Reb Leib says that we all know the famous midrash that tells us that the moon was gifted, that when it comes out at night, it's going to have escorts. It's going to have stars. It's going to come out with stars because it diminished itself in size. Why were we rewarding the moon? Reb Leib wants to know. It's kind of like it just was punished. It accepted the punishment. It heeded to God's command. Oh, now we're going to reward you with two things. You're going to have stars, and then the rest of people are going to be called after you in the future. What's going on, Reb Leib wants to know. Fascinating, Reb Leib says. And we've shared this before at least once, if not twice, over the past year and a half-ish. The moon had so many options on how to diminish itself and fulfill Hashem's command. If we look at it, Hashem just said, go diminish yourself. Now, diminishing could be by 1% even, by dimming its light a little. Hashem gave the moon the choice on how to go and diminish itself. But the moon, even though it made that great mistake in opening its mouth and questioning Hashem in creation, he did understand that he faulted and that his mistake was rooted in the trait of arrogance and haughtiness, that he could question Hashem's choice or preference of creation. So you know what the moon went and did? The moon did as the Mishnah in Masechet Avot in Pirkei Avot tells us, chapter 4, verse 4, Me'od me'od haveh shvel ruach. Make sure that you are very, very exceedingly humble. So it corrected, the moon corrected its arrogance with a tremendous amount of humility and diminished itself, as the Rambam says, by thousands of times, specifically 400 times in size and multiple times in light, meaning it used to be just like the sun. It got rid of its light, no more light. It would only reflect the sun's light, and it diminished in size by 400 times. So Reb Leib says, since the moon understood its mistake and was so exceedingly humble in diminishing itself by so much, that's why the righteous people are going to be called after him. What? Righteous people are small? On the contrary, my Rabbi Yitzchak Berkowitz always tells us that a righteous person is a great person, is a big person, a mature person. Big. He was always very into, he still is, Baruch Hashem, he's always into saying that a person's big. What, big ego? No, chas v'shalom. Big means making the right decisions. A tzaddik is a big person. But a tzaddik is a small person also, Reb Leib tells us. A tzaddik is a person who is exceedingly humble, maktin themselves, not looking for fanfare and glamour and the spotlight. True righteous people, they're soft-spoken, they're out of the media, out of in front of everyone's faces, quiet, humble, dignified people. That's a righteous person. And therefore, Hashem said, we're going to reward this moon. Righteous people are going to be called after it, and it's going to come out with stars. If you see real tzaddikim, real righteous people, they're very quiet, and they have an entourage around them, like the stars around the moon. Reb Leib says, now he connects it. This is why Hashem gave this mitzvah as first to the Jewish people, mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, because sanctifying the new month is connected to the moon. And both these concepts are connected to the moon. The concept of sanctifying the month and the concept of humility. Since they're both connected to the moon, this was indeed the first mitzvah, the first thing Hashem said the Jewish people have to do. They have to remember that humility is the base and the foundation of the entire Torah. Remember, what's the purpose that Hashem is freeing the Jewish people and taking them out of Egypt? To give them the Torah. If that's why Hashem is taking them out, he has to impress from the get-go upon them this idea of humility. Where do we learn humility? From the moon, from the story of the moon, right, at the beginning of creation. How can I attach that? How can I piece that together? By the mitzvah of sanctifying the new month, sanctifying the moon. The moon is a very powerful lesson to be learned. One of small, one of humility. So now Reb Leib ends off by saying there actually is a great connection between both these reasons. On one hand, what was the first reason? He said, on one hand, Hashem gave us this mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, sanctifying the new month, to raise and lift the Jewish people from their sadness, from their depression, from their low and bad place, and chose them as the special nation, as a special child, to have that power to control the moon and the month and the calendar. Yet on the other hand, this was the second reason. As Jews, we have to remember that this great important lesson of the moon teaches us that we have to be humble. We have to understand and internalize what exceedingly humble is from the moon. And that is how we will be worthy of receiving Hashem's chesed and great power that he has in store for all of us. And this is a great, great challenge amongst many great and successful people. A person who's an amazing person, they're financially successful, Baruch Hashem, they're healthy, they have a family, they have a business, they're smart, they're likable, they're popular. The greatest test, one of the greatest tests, is to be humble, to be down to earth. It's like you have all that power and all that strength and all that opportunity, but you got to remember the other hand, the other side. Remember the moon. Hashem took the Jewish people and lifted them up and empowered them. But on the other hand, he was sending them a clear message, the moon, the humility. This combination of power, capability, and humility, power and humility, is one of the most remarkable combinations that is an absolute essential for any leader. And in truth, we're all leaders. We're leaders in our household. We're leaders in some way in our social circles, our communities. So this, if we can remember this, just this one point, to sum it up, why did Hashem give the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the new month to the Jewish people as the first mitzvah? For these two lessons, Reb Leib says. Number one, to lift them out of their suffering, empower them and inspire them, show them how valuable they are. But as valuable as they were, number two, remember to be humble. Remember, Hashem gave you everything you have. Hashem will continue to give you everything you have. Hashem will help you succeed. He wants you to acknowledge him. He wants you to acknowledge that it's coming from him. But it's a dual aspect. On one hand, it's self-confidence. Get up and do what you can do. Use your God-given talents. And on the other hand, reiterate and always bring it home that you have to remember to be humble, Hashem tells us. Power, humility, greatest combination. May Hashem bless us that we will be successful and powerful in our own rights, driven and inspired to fulfill our mission in this world and do good unto others, and to remember it all comes from him, and remember to stay as humble as we possibly can. The Mishnah didn't say be humble or have a shval ruach. No, me'od, very, very, exceedingly humble, because it's a great, great test for everyone.